G'day! In today's video I'm going to be doing a screen replacement on a Nokia 2.1. So to begin with, we take the back cover off and start taking out a whole bunch of screws. Two at the very top are Phillips heads up here. Use a small Phillips head screwdriver to get them out. And this one is freely spinning, which isn't good. But the rest of them after that are a T5. One, two, three, four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, there we go, get the remainder out of there. This phone has got too many screws. That one doesn't want to leave. Now I'll move my screws out of the way. Use a thin pry tool from here. I'll see if I can separate this. There we go, so go under the trim. Just see how I tried to go over, go under, and then proceed to lift. As you can see, this phone is very bent. There we go. I'm going to get that screw out now while I can. And then we have the main board here. So from here, we want to disconnect the battery. Move that shield out of the way. And we will remove most of the other stuff we can see here as well. Don't forget over here, the side buttons. And antenna cable. There we go. One main board removed. Now, next up, we'll probably want to. Where to proceed to now? Disconnect the daughter board. Luckily, removing those 13, 15 screws on the outside means that there's none actually inside the device. If it was, I think I would have been screaming. Now these black bits here should be a neat little pull tab. That seemed to have got it. So you kind of want to pull it up and back. If that doesn't work, we're going to have to pry. So I'm going to use a battery pry tool. It's probably going to snap the phone in half. There we go. So now, you can see this one's hugely bent. Oop, trying to have a camera ring escape. Oops, over here. Now comes the harder part. This bit here gets peeled up. I'm going to try and push it from the inside out with just a flathead screwdriver. You can see it's not pretty, but Gives us a quick way into the phone itself. Now, just going by the print. Almost think this may be a genuine screen. Possibly. But let's proceed. And I'm going to use a pair of tweezers and just go around the outer side. Can use a flathead screwdriver here, that also works perfectly fine. This section isn't going well. The adhesive on here is relatively tacky. Switch to something a bit bigger. And it's not really making too much of a difference. This is just painful and slow. Now we'll take this bit out, as I will need that for over here. With this mostly cleaned up, so to get rid of the rest of the adhesive that doesn't need to be here. This part's going to be probably the most challenging, but let's get into it. we go, that straightened it up reasonably well. That was another issue with this particular one, was a bent frame. Righto, so I'm pretty happy with that. When you get down to the location or spot that you're happy with, what I usually do from there is give it a brush with a toothbrush, just to potentially get rid of any of the smaller glass fragments that you can't actually see, but if you run your finger around, you might get them jammed into your finger. So it might be a bit of an odd method, but it's a method that I've stuck to for a while now. Yeah, that was where I pushed through earlier. It did bend the metal just slightly. So I probably should push that back out just a little bit. There we go. That should be okay. Next up from here, we have the various the mesh grills that were on there. So you can possibly push them into the phone. I'm just going to put them into the... I'm not too sure where I'm going to put them actually. How well will they sit? I know they sit fairly snug. Not enough that I probably wouldn't trust it if I turned it over, but it's alright for now. And there's a little cutout on this. I'm going to have that facing downwards on the bottom section of the screen. So then that will flip over. Next up from here is using some frame adhesive. Personally, I use this stuff. There is alternative stuff available, like this stuff. Personally, I'm just used to this one the most, and it's usually fairly widely available. So I'm just going to go around the outer perimeter. We'll zoom you in here. Give you an idea on how much I'm actually putting down. Just mainly making the various sections damp. Not enough that it's completely saturated, but enough there's a decent amount there. There we go, now that's in focus, you should be able to see what I mean. Now I'll run a strip straight up the corner. There we go, that's an okay amount. Now up the top. Now, what alternatives could you use to this? You could use double-sided tape, but I find that from my own experiences, double-sided tape normally doesn't stay stuck. It usually goes okay for a week, a month, then after that it just tends to lift up. Where this stuff, I can't say I've ever come across a case where it's lifted after I've applied it. So now that I've got it all around the screen, I'm going to feed the display connector through. And keep feeding it and feeding it. Pull it through slightly. There we go. Now we'll go this way first, just so those mesh grills don't fall out. Spin it around. We're seeing as that, which at a quick glance is looking okay. I'll zoom out. See with the screen now stuck down, or at least held into position loosely by the adhesive. Let's proceed to put this back together. So where are we going to begin? Typically from here, usually start at the bottom, work your way up. Luckily we don't have to worry about too many screws here. Now we'll get them in that frame, sorry. Let's zoom in a bit more. Bingo. So let's get the charging board back in. Now you will have to latch it under here, right where my tweezers are pointing. Under, push down, should it click into place. A bit of luck. There we go. Clip down the flex connector 1. Line up and press down the antenna cable. Bingo. Now let's have a look at the top half. Now I'm slowly working my way to the battery itself. The battery is about the last thing I'll worry about putting back in. Next up here, put the camera rubber ring back in. And then the motherboard. Or main board, I tend to interchange them myself. Connect up the bottom flex connector. Connect up the buttons on the left hand side. And make sure you move the antenna cable out of the way. Click. Pretty much when you're pushing everything down, you want to hear a decent little click or crunch when you put it together. You tend to wobble it around a bit, then push. If all goes well, it should make a decent little snap or crack into position. Granted, it does feel like you're probably going to break it every time, especially to the untrained. And then next up, let's go a battery back in there. Now, being that this is still relatively tacky, I'm going to leave that on. I'll connect it up first, then put it into its position, and then disconnect it from there. Rather than pushing the battery down, then trying to connect it, at least you know it is going to fit when it's sitting. But being that it's in the right spot, we've got connected, we're under the latch, everything so far is looking good. I'd say we're right to proceed to the next stage. So board's in place, battery, screen, door to flex cable, antenna connector. I'd say we're good to proceed. Now we've got the battery cover, which just sits here. And next up we've got the plastic back. Pushes on over the top. This phone does have a slight twist to it, but being its condition when it was first dropped in, it doesn't surprise me. The two Phillips head screws go up to both the top left and top right corner, up here and here. So we'll screw that into position. The other one, also screw that into position. And the boring part of putting in all the T5 screws. Now this doesn't want to screw up again on this side. I do suspect that there is some form of damage over here, so it doesn't really surprise me. No, just spinning. That's fine. And from there, proceed to put in all, I believe, 13 T5 screws. What you want to do before you do all these up, though, would be to make sure that your screen does power up and it does function as it should, rather than going to the complete level here of reassembling the whole thing and finding out it doesn't work. It annoys me at one point because there's so many screws to connect to this Nokia, but also it's good that once you're actually in there, there's no extra screws you have to actually do. Where, for example, high-end Samsung phones, you'd have the back cover comes off, you undo, what do you normally undo? About 8 to 10 or 7 to 12 screws. That will get all the plastic shields off, so essentially this section. And then from there you'd have to undo another few more on the charging port, probably up to 4, 5, and then usually 1 or 2 on the main board itself. Where this is of a cheaper design, so wherever they can cut costs. Surprised they didn't cut back on the screws. Also, another thing to note with this, the damage that it had, how it was bent slightly from around about here. Now, the reason why it was bent there, I believe, well, the main board's here and the battery is here. So it's the weak point. There's not enough plastic or metal to keep it straight. So the back cover is merely a cover. It's not going to stop it or hold any structural side of it. Anyway, that's another rant, another story. Right now, I have one repaired Nokia 2.1. I hope this helps you fix yours, and I'll see you on another video. Bye.